This is the Written By program tonight. We have author Ben Guterson with us, and we're very honored to have him. Ben is an author, of course. He's written the trilogy, the Winterhouse series, and his books have received the Washington State Book Award, and he was also a nominee for the Edgar Award, a nominee for that award, pardon me. And the books are wonderful. They follow this girl named Elizabeth as she uncovers mysteries in this great hotel. My daughter is going to be reading it very soon when her hold is available, so she's excited. And we're excited. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to have Ben here with us. And before I hand things over to Ben, I just wanted to do a little shout out. All three of his books are available in ebook format, and two of them are available in physical format at the moment. The other one will be available soon. But you can check these out at hcplc.org/ebooks. They're available in Overdrive, so you can place a hold or check out one. I think one of them is available right now. Just wanted to let you know that you can access his books there. Welcome, Ben. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're excited to have you here.
Well, huge thanks for that kind introduction. And maybe, Chris, just before I jump in, if you can confirm you guys can see my deck. Oops, I went the wrong way there. Okay, well, that's good. I'm glad to know you can see everything. Good. Let me just move this out of the way. And okay, good. Well, and can you guys see, you can see me and you can see my deck as well, right?
Yes, and if you feel free, if you want to take your camera off, you can, whatever makes you comfortable.
Well, that's all right. I'll leave it on for now. Well, thanks a lot for having me. It's really exciting to be here and visit with you folks. As Chris mentioned, my name is Ben Guterson, the author of the Winterhouse trilogy. The first book is Winterhouse. Second book is called The Secrets of Winterhouse. And the third book is The Winterhouse Mysteries. And this one came out at the very beginning of January this year. It concludes the trilogy. And I'll just tell you real briefly about the Winterhouse books, and then I want to share some miscellaneous things with you and share with you some things around puzzles and codes and so on, because there's a lot of that in the Winterhouse books. Winterhouse is about a girl named Elizabeth Summers, and she is 11 years old when the book Winterhouse begins, and she's what you call a bookworm. She loves to read, she loves books, and at the very beginning of the book Winterhouse, it's the start of her winter vacation, her Christmas vacation, and she's gone to her school library, and you can see in her backpack there by her feet, she's checked out a bunch of books from her school library, and all she wants to do is come home, sit in her room, and not be bothered by her mean aunt and uncle, because she lives with a very cruel aunt and uncle. Her parents passed away when she was 4 years old, so 7 years ago, and all she wants to do is read books for 3 weeks. But unfortunately, when she gets to the house, there's a note taped to the door, and she plucks it off and she reads it, and her aunt and uncle tell her basically, we're gone for 3 weeks. Here's a ticket, a train ticket, a bus ticket, and a little bit of money, and you're going to a place called the Winterhouse Hotel for the 3 weeks of your vacation. And Elizabeth can't understand this at all, because her aunt and uncle are very poor, and she just figures they want to try to ruin her vacation somehow. But of course, what can she do? She gets on the train and the bus, and she goes to the Winterhouse Hotel. She thinks it's going to be this awful experience. When she gets there, you can see the illustration, I hope, on the left-hand side there. It's this beautiful, lavish, magical place, and everyone's really nice to her. And she meets the owner of the hotel. There he is in the middle picture there. And his name is Norbridge Falls. He's very kind to her. And he tells her there's a huge library at Winterhouse. And of course, that's what she wants to visit most of all. It's 3 stories tall. It has thousands and thousands of books. And of course, I'm not going to tell you the whole story of the book Winterhouse, but that's sort of the basic idea. When she gets to Winterhouse and gets to the library, she discovers sort of an interesting book there that might have a little bit more to it than she initially thinks. She meets a good friend, a boy named Freddie Knox, who's also there by himself. And the two of them together sort of team up to solve a bunch of the mysteries or mysterious things that are going on in Winterhouse. There is her new friend, Freddie, on the left-hand side. He's got a little workshop at Winterhouse. And what happens is Freddie and Elizabeth go exploring around Winterhouse, and they find this picture of the man who built Winterhouse over 100 years before, and he has this picture or this book open on his lap, and there's some mysterious letters there, and they start to wonder in time if maybe there's a coded message there that they're trying to figure out. And they have all kinds of adventures, and they get, one night they go out cross-country skiing, and there's a strange cabin out there. So those are some of the things that happen in the first Winterhouse book. There's the cover of the second Winterhouse book. Elizabeth comes back about a year later to Winterhouse, and she and Freddie have another adventure. And there on the right-hand side, you can see there's some different characters who kind of menace her a little bit and give her some problems. There's these strange passageways inside the walls of the Winterhouse Hotel, or maybe even underneath the hotel itself. And Elizabeth gets involved in some danger as she's investigating these tunnels inside the hotel. And then the third book, The Winterhouse Mysteries, Elizabeth is at Winterhouse one last time, and she's continuing to try to solve some of the strange things that are going on there. There's a big puzzle in the lobby of the hotel, and she and Freddie work through all these old documents and letters and things they find in all these crates that are in the hotel. And they even look at all the walls. There's things written on them, messages and coded things, just to try to figure out all the different things that could be going on in the hotel. So again, obviously, I'm not going to tell you the whole story of the books because I don't want to spoil anything for you in case you had an interest in reading the books yourself. But those are some of the things that occur in the books. I didn't illustrate the books. The illustrations were done by a woman named Chloe Bristol. There's about 20 or 30 illustrations in each book. But they're regular novels. I just did the writing. I didn't do any of the illustrations. So that's a little bit of information about the Winterhouse trilogy. I actually have a couple more books coming out for the same age group over the next couple years, and if I have time, I may say more about that. But I wanted to share with you guys some of the books that I really liked when I was younger, maybe third, fourth, or fifth grade. I loved books by Roald Dahl, like James and the Giant Peach or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And I bet some of you on this call now are probably familiar with those books or even the movie versions of them. I also loved a book called The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is really famous. It's they call the Chronicles of Narnia. And I love it because especially the beginning, the youngest girl, Lucy, goes through this wardrobe and she enters into this whole magical universe. I thought that story was so cool. Another one I loved is called The Phantom Toll Booth. And I don't know if people read it so much anymore, but I loved it when I was in about third grade. But the book I loved most of all was one that my teacher read to our class when I was in fifth grade. It's called The House with a Clock in Its Walls. And it was a movie about 2 or 3 years ago. But when I was a kid and our teacher read us that book, I just completely fell in love with it. And it has remained one of my favorite books over the years. And in fact, when I worked on the Winterhouse books, especially the first one, I reread that book a bunch of times and I was thinking about it because I thought, gosh, I'd love to write a book that had just a little bit of the magic that was in that book, The House with a Clock in Its Walls. And here's some older classic books that I liked a lot and still love, even at my age, things like Treasure Island and Anna Green Gables and so on. And I bet a lot of you, or maybe all of you, have heard of some of these books because they're what we call classics. Hey, Chris, maybe I'll pause for just a moment. And if anyone has a question, I don't know if there's anything in the chat window. I don't have that open right now. But if someone wants to ask a question or two, I'd be happy to pause before I go on and just answer any questions. So is there anything I can answer?
Yeah, we have a question here about the book Winterhouse. We want to know why there are words like Bay, May, and Mad under the chapter titles.
Very good question. And I will ask you to hold that question for about 5 or 10 minutes because I'm going to show you a slide that explains what are called word ladders. And then hopefully that will answer the question. Okay. And then Chris, you can check me if I don't answer the question fully, I'll be sure to. But I have a slide and it will show that stuff on it. Okay.
All right. There's another question here. They want to know, did you come up with the whole story for all 3 books first, or did you write them one at a time?
I did not come up with all 3 stories at one time. In fact, I was really lucky. I connected with an agent. I didn't know anything about writing, but I connected with an agent through I got online and looked up all these people, and she really liked the book, and she sent it to a bunch of book companies. That's how it works. Another thing I didn't know, and a book company called Macmillan liked the book. All I'd written was Winterhouse. I'd only written one book. And there was a lady at Macmillan named Christy Ottaviano, and she said, "Hey, I really like this book, and we'd like to publish it." And I was like, "That's incredible. Thank you." And she said, "And we like it a lot. We're wondering if you could turn the one book into 3 books." So at that point, you think to yourself, okay, do you take the one book and kind of expand it over 3 books? Or do you just start with the first book you've already written and then try to come up with a second story and a third story? And that's what I did. Once Macmillan said they liked the first book and they asked me to write 3 books in total, I decided to come up with a second story and a third story. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Well, why don't I continue on? And if there's questions that come up, I'll pause again in a few minutes, okay? So I just showed you guys some of the books that I liked when I was a kid. Here are some books that I've read over the last few years, and I bet Chris, you or any teachers or maybe even lots of kids on the call will be familiar with some of these books. I love a series called The Mysterious Benedict Society. I also love a series called Book Scavenger. It's really cool about hiding books and looking for them all around the country. I won't go through all of these, but I bet a lot of you are familiar with the graphic novel series called Amulet. It's very popular. And the author, Kazu Kibuishi, he actually lives near me. I've gotten to know him and become friends with him. He's a really nice guy, and he's a really talented artist and writer. And his series is fantastic. Again, I'm not talking about all the books here, but I'm just putting up the covers so you can see them. I really like the York series by Laura Ruby. If you like, if you like a book like Winterhouse, actually the York series is kind of similar. A lot of codes and puzzles and stuff like that. And if you like the Harry Potter books, you'd love the Nevermore series. I just put those books up there, or that cover up there as well. It's really cool. If you're a Harry Potter fan, you should check out the Nevermore series. And there are some other books there. Again, I won't talk about all of them, but I bet you might be familiar with them. And Chris, these might be the kinds of books that you're familiar with, or maybe some you could share with some of the kids at some of the libraries there. Um,
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead and go on here. I want to show you something kind of funny. Remember how at the very beginning I said Elizabeth in my book Winterhouse was a bookworm? We've all probably used that term or heard that term before, but when you think about it, it's a little bit weird. Like, why would we call someone who loves books a bookworm? Well, I looked into this a little bit, and then actually about a year ago, my wife and I went to Portugal, and we went to a city called Mafra. And in Mafra, there's a big palace, and there's a picture of it right there. It's huge. It has 1,200 rooms in it, and the biggest room of all in that palace in Mafra is the library. The library is over 100 yards long. That's long. That's as long as a football field, like where the Buccaneers play or the Seahawks play. And so there's a picture of me in the library. We went in there, and it's just such a cool place. But here's the problem in old libraries, this library is like over 300 or 400 years old. In old libraries, there are these little bugs that are long. They look like worms, and they get into the books, and they eat the paper in the books. And I guess that's why we call people bookworms, because like humans who love to devour books or read books, we would call them bookworms. But in a real library, it's a big problem because the bookworms would destroy the books. So this library in the Mafra Palace, the librarians came up with a very clever solution to get rid of the bookworms that eat the books. What they did was they brought in a colony of bats, and there are some dead ones. It's kind of weird, but they're on a display there. And the bats live in the library. And during the day, the bats sleep behind the books. And then at night, when it gets dark and they can tell it's nighttime, they come out and they fly all around. And if there are any bookworms coming out of the books, the bats swoop down and they eat them. So that's how this library controls the bookworm problem in their library. So Chris, I can maybe recommend to you, if your library has any bug problems, perhaps you could consider bringing in a colony of bats to combat that problem there. Or any of you on the call, if you're a librarian or if you're a student, you can tell your school librarian to bring in a bunch of bats, and that will get rid of the bugs there. Let me pause for just a moment because I'm going to change tracks here, and I want to keep my eye on the clock. Any questions before I go on to talk about something completely different?
Yes. One of our attendees would like to know which book specifically inspired you to write the Winterhouse series. Was there one that really stands out?
Yeah, it was The House with a Clock in Its Walls. I think that's what the question means, right? Like, is there a book that I read once that made me want to write
Yes.
Winterhouse? Yeah,
Yes.
it was definitely The House with a Clock in Its Walls. When I thought about trying to write a book for kids, I thought, well, what book did I really like when I was younger? And that's the book that really inspired me a lot. There's a lot of magic in it and mystery and a lot of excitement. And I just thought, wow, it'd be really, really great to try to write a book that has that kind of level of excitement and interest in it. So that's definitely the one.
Cool.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I know you did mention some authors and books that inspire you. Is there a specific author that inspired you to write or to take up book writing?
Well, in terms of kids' books, I really admire Roald Dahl. I like his style. He has a really kind of fun style and of writing. It's not really straightforward. There's a little bit of humor in it, and I kind of like that. And so I've kind of looked to him over the years as someone that I really, I just like the way sort of stylistically he writes his stories.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take some more questions in a bit. I want to show you guys something here. And actually for this next part, all you on the call, if you happen to have a piece of paper with you or something, you can maybe try to follow along and try to solve some of these sort of puzzles as we go. If not, don't worry, you can do them in your head as well. So don't worry if you don't have a piece of paper with you. Oh, I'm sorry. Before I go on, I want to show you something here. Sometimes people ask me, was I always a writer? And the answer is no. I actually was a school teacher for 10 years. And there's a picture of me kneeling down in front of students. I was a teacher in New Mexico on the Navajo reservation, and there's a club we had called the Troubleshooters. So I was a teacher for 10 years. And then actually, I moved on to work at Microsoft. And there is me talking to a group at Microsoft. So, I went from being a teacher to being someone who worked at Microsoft. And then about 4.5 years ago, I moved into being a writer full time. So, there are lots of different paths that people take to writing. While I was at Microsoft in particular, every night I would try to write a lot in the background and work on stories. And that's sort of how it all came about. I'm going to skip this next part because I don't know that we have enough time for it. And let me go directly to the stuff about puzzles and codes. So hopefully you can see the stop sign there. My slides showing up for everyone. Stop sign. See it?
Yes. Yes, we see
Okay,
it.
good, good. Well, when I was younger, particularly when I was in the car with my parents and they'd come to a stop sign, I would look at the stop sign and I would start to rearrange the letters, STOP. And I realized there are 5 other words that have 4 letters in them that you can rearrange STOP into. And if you want to start writing them down on a piece of paper or even just thinking of them, see if you can come up with the 5 words that you can rearrange STOP into. They have to have 4 letters, not just 2 or 3 letters. And as you're thinking, I'm going to start giving you the answers. One of them is the word tops. One of them is the word post. There's also pots. There's spot. And the last one is not a very common word, but if someone chooses to do something, he or she opts to do it. So those are the 5 4-letter words you can change stop into. So why am I showing you this? Well, first of all, I always love to play around with words. And I think if you like to play around with words, you would have the instincts of a writer because that's what writers do, like all day. They just play around with words. But also in the Winterhouse books, there's a lot of wordplay, and Elizabeth and Freddie become very close friends because they both like to play around with words all the time. When you rearrange the letters of a word or words to make other words out of them, that's what's called an anagram. I bet some of you have heard that word before. So I really like anagrams. And I looked up online, I went to a website and I found some really fun anagrams. You can rearrange the word listen into the word silent. You can rearrange astronomers into moon starers, which is kind of what astronomers are. Conversation can change into voices rant on. The countryside is no city dust here. Vacation time turns into I am not active. And my favorite of all, you can change a decimal point into I'm a dot in place. And I really like these. I didn't make them up. I found them online, but they're very clever, I think, because the thing on the right is almost a commentary on the original thing on the left. So I got on one of these anagram sites. You can go to, just do a Google search for anagrams, and it'll take you to these sites, and you can punch in any word you want. So I put in my last name. My last name is Guterson. And you push the submit button, and it shows you all the anagrams that you can turn your name into. So you can change Guterson into Rug Notes. You can change Guterson into True Song. You can change it into Sour Gent. You can turn it into So Urgent. However, there's only one word in the English language that has 8 letters, like my last name, that you can change Guterson into. And by a very nice coincidence, it is Chris's last name. It is the word sturgeon, which is a fish. And hopefully you can
Yes.
see the picture of the fish there. I just thought that was so funny when Chris and I first made contact. I said, you won't believe this, but your last name is an anagram of my last name. I thought that was pretty cool.
That is cool.
So if you're at home there and you want to challenge, can you come up with other 4-letter words that you can change east into? I'll give you a moment, and then I'm going to show you a few answers. I know you can't talk on this presentation. See if you can come up with other 4-letter words that you can change east into. You can change it into seat, tease, eats, and sate. There may be another one or two. All right, how about the word star? Can you change it into other 4-letter words? I bet a lot of you got at least 2 of these. Tars, arts, and rats are the 3 I came up with. All right, those are 4-letter words. How about 5-letter words? Steam. Can you turn steam into other 5-letter words? Give it a try. I'll show you some answers here. I bet a lot of you came up with at least a couple of these. Tames, meets, mates, teams. All right, we'll try a couple more. Notes. This is a tough one, actually. If you can even get 1, you're doing pretty good. I'll show you the 3 I got. Stone is one of them, tones, and onset. If you got onset, you can pat yourself on the back. And how about least? Other 5-letter words you can change least into? I can practically hear everyone's brain working from the other side of the country. Steel, stale, slate, and tails. Now, again, I'm showing you this because it's a lot of fun. I love to do anagrams, but also in the Winterhouse books, Elizabeth and Freddie become closer friends because they're always trying to come up with clever anagrams. And also, I tried to have a little bit of fun in book 2 of the Winterhouse series. Every chapter has a title. Like chapter 1 is an instant on the bus. And then you'll notice in every chapter title, some of the letters are a little bit grayer than the others. And then I rearrange those to make a new word underneath the chapter title. So ENTO, you can rearrange into note because Elizabeth gets a note in chapter 1. And then chapter 2, similar. I won't work through it for you because I want to show you word letters. And Chris, this hopefully will answer the question that someone posed earlier. A word letter is when you start with one word and you want to change it into another word. And the way you change it is you create a new word by changing one letter at a time. Now that's a little confusing, so let me show you how it works. If you want to change cat into dog, you could change the word cat into the word caught. And then you could change the word caught into the word dot, and then dot you could change into dog. And I hope everyone sees that all I did was change one letter at a time, right? I'm assuming everyone's virtually nodding their head. All right, so let's try one together. Can you change cold into warm? And again, I know you guys are all muted, but maybe you're trying this at home, and there's actually more than one way to do these. So if you do a way that's different than mine, that's fine. Here's how I did it. I changed cold to cord. And then you might be thinking, how do I get from cord to warm? Well, I changed cord into card, and then I changed card into ward, like part of a hospital, and then you go to warm. All right, last one. This is actually a really famous one, to change head to tail. So you can change head to heel. That's one way of doing it. And I'm pausing because some of you might be trying to work this out on your own. Heel to teal, teal to tell, and then you could change tail to tall and tall to tail. These are word letters. They were created by Lewis Carroll, who wrote the Alice in Wonderland books. And let me show you again why I'm showing you these. Freddie and Elizabeth love to do word letters. And as was mentioned in that question earlier, I worked a word ladder into every chapter title in the first Winterhouse book. So chapter 1 is called A Troubling Note. And then you go note, and you change one letter at a time, and you work down to the word gate, because in the first chapter, a gate closes behind Elizabeth. So I thought it would be fun to have a word ladder show up in every chapter title. And if you want to have a little fun, you could even put your hand over all the words between note and gate and see if you could work it out on your own if you happen to read the book. So Chris, I'm going to pause there. I went pretty quickly. I do have some other code and puzzle stuff, but I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I want to make sure there's time for questions, and I want to respect the time, the end time that you had. So I'll stop there, and I'll take questions or whatever direction you want to go. Okay?
Yeah, no, yes, that's great. We do have some questions here, and like I said, feel free to post your questions. We have time for that. Someone is asking, how do you get into the mindset to write for children?
Well, I'd say, first of all, I've read a lot of kids' books, and I love them. And I think, at least for me, those were two kind of prerequisites, things that have to be in place, because then you kind of know, or you think you might know, the sorts of things that might work in a kid's story. So I think reading a lot, really anyone who wants to be a writer has to read a lot, and that puts me in the mindset. Beyond that, I just really like sort of adventurous stuff, exciting stuff, mysteries, and friendships between kids. And so I try to sort of think what might be realistic or interesting situations that have those elements in them. And that's kind of how I get in the mindset.
Okay. Great. Someone's thanking you for answering their question from earlier about the different words. That's really neat.
Good. I hope it makes sense.
Yeah. The illustrations in your books are really, really eye-catching and very, very unique. And did you get to choose the illustrator for your books?
No, I had no role in it at all. The book company, again, it's Macmillan. The woman there I work with is what's called an editor. Her name's Christy,
Right.
and she's somehow she reached out and looked at all some different people's work or something, and she thought this one particular artist named Chloe Bristol, that her artwork would be a good match for the story Winterhouse. And I think she was 100% correct. And Chloe's incredible. Chloe's worked on everything from SpongeBob to the Mary Poppins movie that came out a couple years ago, and she's done all kinds of books and all that. And so I feel really, really lucky. And plus, she's a really, really nice young lady. So I'm really glad she worked on the book. But I had really, frankly, no involvement in it.
Well, yeah, it's really, really neat looking. So,
yeah.
Let's see, we have one more question here. Someone's talking about how Winterhouse seems like it would be a neat place to visit. If you could travel to any fictional setting, where would you go?
Any fictional setting. Well, again, I might have to go back to Roald Dahl. I always wanted to go to that chocolate factory in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I thought it was so magical, all these different things, and everything's all whimsical, and he's got sort of an answer for everything, Willy Wonka does. And I just thought all that was just so cool. So I'd love to go to a place like that.
All right. Well, I think that is it for questions. Let me check one more time if anyone's got any other questions for us. They don't. Let me go ahead and just say a few things about the library here. You can contact us at the number here on the screen, or you can go online at hcplc.org/contact. And you can also connect with Ben. He has a website at benguterson.com, or you can go on Facebook, where he can be found at ben.guterson.96. Also, if you'd like to share your experiences with the library, your story with the library, you can do that at hcplc.org/about/stories. And you can also find out about upcoming events like this one at our online calendar at hcplc.org/events. All right. Well, Ben, we really appreciate you taking time to share your love of, oh, looks like,
Well,
oh, wait,
huge
that's just
thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll just mention as well, there's other codes and puzzles. If you check out the website, you can look up, I have beyond the word ladders and the anagrams. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, there's a page there. You can learn about ciphers and codes and all kinds of other cool things if that's something you're interested in. But Chris, and huge thanks for inviting me, and thanks to the folks who joined. It was a real pleasure to connect with you guys. Maybe I'll get to Tampa one of these days and I'll catch a Rays game and I'll get to visit the library as well.
That would be great. We would love that. All right. Well, thanks again, Ben, and thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We'll see you all real soon. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you.